era of entertainment. We spoke with Imani Cheers, Associate Professor of Digital Content and Storytelling at George Washington University down the street from here, and I asked her how she believed the industry had acclimated to this new normal.
We look back, and I know for many people, talking about the COVID-19 pandemic seems ancient times, but it really wasn't. And when we start examining the way in which the COVID-19 pandemic really impacted not only entertainment creation, but entertainment consumption. So we had individuals, everything from movies, television shows, news, that all had to pivot, and shows that were in production, whether it be pre-production or post-production, really had to pause. And they had to think, how do we now creatively release our content, or even creatively figure out ways to continue creating that content? And so you had all of these different ideas, and everything from our streaming platforms. You saw that obviously individuals, if you were in a country that was on a severe lockdown, like the United States, and you were not able to go to a movie theater, you weren't able to go outside of your house to engage in content, what you did is you relied on those streaming services and what they were able to provide you and your family in your homes. And that really spiked. And we saw something really interesting. And one of my favorite antidotes is probably Disney Plus. So Disney Plus did this amazing thing where they said, you know what, we're going to give you an in-home theater experience. And that in-home theater experience, we're going to charge you $30. It was $29.99 for you to access that content, quote unquote, ahead of time, or when it would have been a theatrical release. And we're going to let you enjoy that content. Now, if you were someone like myself that was like, I'm not paying $30 to watch this movie, I'll wait till it comes out in 6 weeks or so. But a lot of individuals who really rely on, and $30 was a steal. If you have a family of 5, spending $30 to watch this, amazing film in the comfort of your own home was actually a deal. And for people like myself, where I was like, that's way too expensive. But Disney really found a way to make it happen. You have other services and other companies such as Netflix, such as Hulu, HBO. Whoa, HBO Max really had a groundbreaking year for content. And I think we're really seeing that the winners were those who really took the chance to say, guess what? We're going to continue to create phenomenal content, really compelling characters, really engaging stories, and we're going to have our consumers come back to us. And they came back in droves.
One of the things I noticed is, and you can call me old school, but in the old days, you watched TV and it was free, but you had to watch the cereal ads and you had to watch the ads, right? And so you saw a number of announcements in 2022 from companies you've already mentioned that are launching this watch ads, but pay less for the subscription, or get the subscription for free. And I feel like we've pivoted back 25 years ago. So we shouldn't call this streaming anymore. Let's just call it regular old TV, because it seems like that's an option. If you look at the surveys of people who say, I would rather watch ads than pay for streaming, the number of people who say, I would rather do that, it seems really, really high given the times that we're in. Are you surprised?
Phillip, that's such a really great concept, because you're right. I mean, consider ourselves old school, right? I think we're definitely within the same, that same demographic. And I was someone who also truly remember having content available to you, as you mentioned, for free if you had an ad, if depending on when that came in. And now you're seeing, services. Hulu, I think, is a really great example of the way in which they've engaged ads within their content. Most individuals, because we realized people were cutting their cable cords in lieu of streaming services. Then they started adding up Netflix, Amazon Prime, Hulu, Disney Plus, et cetera, et cetera. And all of a sudden, you were paying more for this content than you were when you had your Xfinity or your DSTV package. And then that's where consumers really started saying, okay, wait a minute, if I'm still spending the same amount of money to have 8 different streaming services versus the content that I was originally consuming with my regular cable, what am I doing? How is this a cost-saving measure for my family? And it really wasn't.
Right. And you see that with us individually. We look at our different accounts, right? Well, do we really need 12 different services? Let's look ahead to 2023 a little bit and the trends of the industry, right? Corporations, corporate companies are under pressure. You look at the stock prices of major streaming companies, they're all under tremendous pressure. There's talk of potentially more layoffs. and cost cutting. How do you think that's going to affect the industry next year?
You know, we've seen mergers, major mergers in 2022, and I think we're going to still can see there's some mergers on the horizon that I think individuals are going to probably be looking at, and whether we're combining services. You know, if you get Hulu, you get Disney Plus as well as ESPN streaming, and so I think we're going to see a number of these bundle packages. And even if they're not mergers, we're going to look at the way in which packages and content and services are going to be bundled together, and how can we sort of put all of these things under a parent company. It's not necessarily a merger in a sense, right? Hulu is still its own entity, Disney Plus, et cetera, ESPN. But if you want all of that content in one space, or for one in particular convenient fee, I think we're going to start seeing that. So on the horizon, and what that looks like is, on the one hand, it's going to be a lot of cost cutting measures. So that means going to be a lot of people who are looking for jobs right now. Netflix is already talking about cutting some of their services, and services in the sense of, you know, some of their employees and what they're looking at. You know, Netflix was really flying out the gate when it was coming to in the, you know, mid 2015, 16, 17, 18, and the way in which they were just spending absolute enormous amounts of money for content. And then we have places like Amazon Prime and even an HBO who are still competing. You even have Apple TV, who is still producing actually amazing, amazing content. And this content in particular that you're seeing that's really, really compelling. One of my favorite shows, Ted Lasso, is on Apple TV. Phenomenal, hilarious show. You look at shows on Amazon Prime, you look at shows on as I mentioned, HBO, the White Lotus, sweeping award shows. And we're just really seeing the fact that a lot of this right now, I think consumers are really looking for compelling content. It's the companies that are trying to figure out how to give it to us.